Every December, a large spruce tree is cut down in Nova Scotia, loaded onto a truck, and driven about 700 miles south to Boston. It is put up on Boston Common, and there is a ceremony, and it is lit. This has happened every year for decades. It is a thank you. And the thing it is thanking Boston for happened in 1917, on a morning that most people outside Canada have never heard of, which produced the largest man-made explosion in human history up to that point. Not the largest in Canada, the largest anywhere, and it held that record until 1945. Here is what happened, and why a city still sends a tree. Halifax in 1917 was one of the most important ports in the Atlantic. The war was on, and Halifax had a deep harbor that never froze, protected by a narrow entrance, which made it the assembly point for convoys crossing to Europe. Everything going over, troops, food, and munitions, came through there. The harbor narrows at one point into a channel called the Narrows, and on the morning of the 6th of December, two ships were trying to use it at the same time. One was a Norwegian vessel on its way out, heading to New York to pick up relief supplies for occupied Belgium. The other was a French cargo ship coming in to join a convoy. And that French ship was carrying in its holds and on its deck somewhere around 3,000 tons of high explosive, TNT, picric acid, which is unstable and worse, gun cotton, and stacked on the open deck, because there was no room below, metal drums of benzol, a highly flammable fuel. She was, in effect, a floating bomb, and she was not flying any flag or marking to say so, because in wartime, you do not advertise what you are carrying. The two ships approached each other in the Narrows, and what followed was a series of small mistakes about who was giving way. Signals were exchanged. Both captains made reasonable decisions based on what they expected the other to do, and both of them were wrong. At the last moment, they each tried to correct, and the corrections turned them into each other. The collision itself was not violent. The Norwegian ship's bow struck the French ship on the side, opened up some plating, and then pulled back out again. That reversing motion dragged metal across metal and threw sparks into the ruptured drums of benzol on the deck. The fuel caught. Within seconds, the French ship had a fire burning on top of 3,000 tons of explosive and no way to put it out. Her crew understood exactly what that meant. They abandoned ship immediately, rowed for the far shore, and ran inland, shouting warnings that mostly nobody understood, because they were shouting in French in an English-speaking port. Meanwhile, the burning ship, now with nobody aboard, drifted quietly across the harbor and came to rest against a wooden pier on the Halifax side in a dense residential district. The fire was spectacular. Thick black smoke, flames going up the mast, and the pier itself starting to catch. The city fire brigade turned out, and people came to watch. They stood on the street. They came out of the shops, and crucially, in the schools and factories and houses all around the harbor. People went to the windows and looked out through the glass at the burning ship. Hold that image. At about 4 minutes past 9 in the morning, after burning for roughly 20 minutes, the cargo detonated. The blast released energy equivalent to around 3,000 tons of TNT. Every building within a wide radius of the pier was destroyed or wrecked beyond use. A shockwave traveled outward and was felt more than 100 miles away. The ship itself was almost entirely vaporized. Part of her anchor shank, weighing over half a ton, was thrown about 2 miles and landed inland. The explosion also displaced an enormous volume of water, which came back as a wave that ran up the shores on both sides of the harbor and swept away a small Mi'kmaq community that had lived at the water's edge for generations. Somewhere around 2,000 people were killed. Around 9,000 were injured, and now come back to the windows, because a very large number of those injuries were to the eyes. Thousands of people had been standing at panes of glass, watching a fire when the blast turned every window in the city into fragments moving faster than anyone could blink. Roughly 6,000 people suffered eye injuries. Hundreds lost sight in one or both eyes. It is one of the largest concentrations of eye trauma from a single event in medical history. Then, that night, it began to snow. A blizzard arrived the following day and dropped over a foot of snow onto a city that had lost its houses, its hospitals, and much of its rail network. People who had survived the blast were trapped in ruins in a snowstorm. The rescue was about as difficult as a rescue can be. But there is one part of that morning that I want to tell properly. Just before the explosion, in a railway dispatch office near the waterfront, a train dispatcher was working the telegraph. A sailor had run past warning that the burning ship was carrying munitions, and the office was told to evacuate. The dispatcher started to leave. Then he remembered that there was an incoming passenger train with several hundred people aboard, due at the station in a few minutes. So he went back to his key and sent a message up the line telling them to stop the train. The wording that survives is roughly this: hold up the train. Ammunition ship afire in harbor making for Pier 6. Goodbye, boys. The train stopped. He did not survive. Now, the help. Word reached Boston that evening, and the response there was immediate in a way that is genuinely striking. Within hours, a relief train was assembled carrying doctors, nurses, surgical supplies, and equipment, and it left for Halifax before anyone in Boston had a clear picture of how bad it actually was. They did not wait for a formal request. They just went. The train had to fight through the same blizzard, and it took the better part of 2 days. And when it arrived, it brought an entire functioning medical operation into a city whose own hospitals were wrecked. More followed: money, materials, and people. And the eye injuries had a long consequence. The sheer number of patients concentrated in one place made Halifax a center for the treatment of eye trauma and for the care and training of people who had lost their sight. The work done there fed directly into how blindness was handled in Canada afterwards. There were other legacies too. The explosion became a foundational case study in how cities plan for mass casualties and in how you organize a disaster response before the disaster happens. Some of the basic ideas about triage and coordinated relief that we now take for granted were sharpened on that morning. Which brings us back to the tree. The year after the explosion, Nova Scotia sent a Christmas tree to Boston as a thank you. And then, for a long time, nothing. Decades went by. Then in the early 1970s, someone revived the idea, and it became annual, and it has been going ever since. The tree is chosen carefully, often from a family's own land, and being asked is considered an honor. It is cut, it travels south, and it stands on Boston Common through December. So think about what that actually is. It is a debt being paid every single year by people who were not born when it was incurred, to a city whose current residents had nothing to do with it either. Neither side has to keep doing this. The people who were helped are gone. The people who helped are gone. And the tree goes down every year anyway, because somebody decided that this was worth remembering, and then kept deciding it. 2,000 people died in about a fifth of a second on a Thursday morning in 1917. And the thing that outlasted it is not the crater or the record or the shipping regulations. It is a spruce tree going down a road